Right, 2 emergency pods in 1 week. Maize Blue Review here to talk about the official hiring of Chiron Moore as the 21st head coach in Michigan football history. He's the 7th former assistant to become head coach. Only Brady Hoke left the program and came back. The other 6 were all promoted as successors. And of course, historic, he is the first African-American head coach for Michigan football in the 145 years of the program. So obviously this news was expected, but here we are. Now official. Chiron Moore will take over the Michigan football program. Reactions are pouring in from players that were on Team 144, J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum. I've saw Zach Zinter. I've all seen giving their shout outs and saying, of course, Moore was the man for the job. Recruits, current commits, current players also coming out showing their support for the job, which was why this was the obvious choice. But I think we're going to talk about why it wasn't just an easy choice, but why it was the right choice as well. I am Trevor McCue, senior editor, Maize Blue Review, joined as always, Josh Henschke, Intel, insider, publisher. What are you feeling, man? We said after the Harbaugh thing, it was obviously kind of odd in the moment, maybe a little bit of relief that it was over. I think I got a little bit of relief again, right? Yeah. When we heard about the 7-day waiver and all this other stuff, which we love to hammer on this athletic department. So props to them for getting the waiver done and getting this announcement out today and not letting this drag on too long. We were kind of joking because we kind of expected it could be today. And I'm like, I don't know, man, after 6, that'd be weird. And then here it comes. Anyway, how are you feeling, Chiron Moore, officially 21st head coach, Michigan football history?
Yeah, kind of an epic news dump by Michigan there at 7:30-ish, to announce it. Hey, whatever, better late than never. So
they were working on that short little video with him saying "Go Blue" and clearly trying to get a little.
That was what the 7-day law was. You got to have a video.
Make sure you got the video ready to go.
Yeah. Well, hey, whatever. I mean, onward. It's time to move forward. Now Michigan can, focus on what they've accomplished and move forward. They've got a leader to lead the program. One that, we've been pretty consistent in saying that it was going to be the guy, and one that was really a no-brainer decision for this program to move forward. I mean, when you talk about stability, from a program standpoint, some coaches will be kept on the staff, with this 30-day window with Jim Harbaugh leaving. I think this is the best case scenario, is to have Chiron Moore at the ready and, to prevent anyone leaving. I mean, you get to keep the culture. You get to keep basically status quo. I mean, for right now, status quo is good. Ultimately, we don't know what the program is going to look like with Chiron moving forward. And obviously the success on the field is just that, going to be on the field. So I can't sit here and proclaim, it's all Michigan's going to compete for national championships for the rest of time. I mean,
the opposite, right?
Right. And it could, exactly. And it could be the very opposite. I can't sit here and say, oh, this is terrible, because we don't know. We'll wait and see. However, the most important part is, onward. You got a guy that's very familiar with the program, doesn't have to take very long to acclimate himself. Got a couple of tasks he needs to accomplish here in the coming days. But it kind of feels like a turning point for this program moving forward in terms of getting away from what they've experienced the last 3 years with this, Jim Harbaugh NFL flirtation kind of stuff. And now they've got something that they can work with.
It was worth it.
Yep.
Right. We always said it's worth it with Jim Harbaugh, especially the last 3 years. But I think there is a little bit of like, hey, maybe it's going to be nice to not have to deal with it.
And most importantly, too, this is
I'm not mad at him. It's what he wanted.
Right.
None of that.
Exactly. And we can kind of move on from that, too. Kind of move on or do you have to be mad at Jim or whatever? But, this is a guy that was handpicked by Jim Harbaugh to take over the program. So, it's good time. And Coach Bedford, how you doing? Good to see you. And it's always good to hear your opinions too. But yeah, I mean, this is the from the Michigan perspective, I mean, there's no better person than Vance Bedford here to say, hey, everyone's with you. This is the general feeling amongst Michigan.
The reaction so far has looked unanimous. Right?
Yeah, from the past couple of coaching searches pre Harbaugh, there's been some kind of contention, I guess. This is something that every Michigan fan can get behind.
Yeah.
And this is really from, the top on down. This is a unified Michigan, and really a unified Michigan that's set to move forward. And yeah, you got a guy that's handpicked by Jim Harbaugh.
Nice,
you can't get better than that. You can't get a higher I guess vote of confidence than Jim Harbaugh basically propping up his guy. So he's got his shot, and let's move forward.
We'll get into obviously the next, right? So some coaching staff stuff, things that arguably will be the same and things that will be different, right? And maybe what some pros, and I don't want to say cons, but maybe challenges that are going to be faced, right? This is a big deal. To your point about whether we want to proclaim more future national champion or this is going to fail miserably, no one knows, right? You take the evidence you have, and in this case, a man who's been in your program for 6 years, right? And we'll get into everything he's accomplished while here. And you try to put someone in a position to succeed, and you see what happens. We've seen big name splash hires not work out, and we've seen multiple hires like this where a coordinator with no head coach experience is ultimately successful, right? Yeah, we'll definitely get into in the staff keeping Mr. Herbert, not letting him get on that plane with Jim Harbaugh, right? But yeah, there's definitely some staff moves and replacing himself as OC, finding a new DC more than likely. And then, I think when you've got coaches, players, recruits, parents, literally anyone that stepped foot in the building and seen Ben Herbert work, when everyone praises this person, I don't know of any other strength coach in the country that is as recognized as Ben Herbert. So that's going to be a big deal. But here, let's talk about it. I've seen some people talk about hitting the easy button. This is just an easy decision. We should have done the national coaching search. Is he the best person, right? So, Josh, you already brought up the national coaching search. We've seen what's happened. Bama hired Kalen DeBoer in 50 hours or something, right? Yep. And you still have this exodus of players, right? On the flip side of that, you have something like Notre Dame. I brought that up in these conversations where Marcus Freeman was basically demanded by the players, right? Yep. I don't think those situations are similar in that Freeman was only in the program for a year, right? Kelly leaving came out of nowhere. They were still in playoff contention. Do you remember that when the LSU news broke? And it was just unbelievable. The man had become the winningest coach in Notre Dame history, and it was kind of a panic mode. Harbaugh has been flirting with the NFL for 3 years. His contract has been publicly discussed for at least a year at this point. We know he's interviewing with the Chargers, whatever. Michigan's not stupid. These things were in motion. But Sherrone Moore made sense because, like you said, not only does he have the trust of the players from his time being here, from recruiting them, from leading them as head coach for 4 games this year, you have the trust of Jim Harbaugh. And for folks who want the future of Michigan to be some continuity of this era, and obviously things leaving in good hands with Harbaugh, he made a comment yesterday about he thinks about the Chargers and Michigan like it's one team, right? Like there's this bridge that's going to continue to connect these programs. I made a joke. It'd be cool if we're one team, can we borrow Justin Herbert for a year? Right.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, I mean, this just feels bigger than simply hiring a Marcus Freeman, that has been around a program, or even, I don't know why. I mean, even like a Lloyd Carr and Moeller, they'd been around for so long. It would have been just like this utter disrespect. I don't know. This just feels different to me. There's a different energy to this where it's continuity, and maybe there's a lot of new and exciting things too. And that's maybe what's making me feel a little different about this hire as opposed to them just hitting a button.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the easy button, but that's because it is. They did hit the easy button because
They're lucky they had the easy button.
Yeah, the easy button is the right decision. You know, you have a guy that's been sitting there for 6 years. Yeah, you can bring up the wins against Penn State and Ohio State. I think they matter. They certainly do matter. And yeah, people can make the argument that, oh, Jim was in the building from Monday to Friday, and helping game plan. You can only game plan, coaches and programs only have a certain number of plays that they pre-script heading into games. You still have to go out there and make decisions as a head coach. And in Sherrone's case, also as a play caller, has to go out there and call the plays for the offense as well as for the whole team. I mean, he had those 4 games, he had to make decisions for the whole team. So there's also there's stuff that goes into that as being a game day coach that goes outside of what Jim Harbaugh could help you with game planning during the week. So those matter. Those games matter. So you've got a guy that if he wasn't going to be hired in this cycle by Michigan, someone was going to take him away. And I know for a fact before Northwestern decided to hire David Braun, they were planning on wanting to talk to Sherrone to be their head coach, and he's turned down a number of head coaching interviews to stay at Michigan too. So this is something that I'm sure that has been in the works for a while. I mean, not just this year.
We were talking about Harbaugh returning and Chiron Moore's new contract as OC having head coach in waiting language in his contract. We didn't know if it would be this year, another year, 2 years, whatever, but this was already kind of the plan, to your point, right?
Yeah, exactly. So now we just got to see it in action. He doesn't have the most friendliest of schedules in 2024.
Texas week too. Congratulations.
Hey, I think if you got to prove to be successful, you got to go out there and win these games. And you can't, make excuses for the schedule, just like you can't apologize for what the schedule says in the opposite direction too. So, so we'll kind of see how things go. I mean, as we've kind of mentioned, there's a couple of boxes he needs to tick here in short order, but I mean, this to some, it feels like the cop out, easy decision, but I think it's the right decision. Yeah, it's the easy decision because it's the right one. And credit Michigan to getting this done quick. I mean, you're talking 48 hours after Harbaugh left, about 48 hours. Mm-hmm. Pretty quick turnaround. I mean, that's a pretty quick and pretty good definitive turnaround to say, hey, we're keeping this train rolling. We're keeping the culture together. I think this was something the players wanted to, and that's also important because I kind of likened it to like an Antonio Pierce type of situation in Las Vegas, where, if he wasn't going to be the guy, you had people, obviously you can't request trades in college, but you'd have people requesting trades and trying to get out of there because, they are fully supportive of Antonio Pierce. And this kind of feels very similar, where they would be a straight up riot in that building if it was anyone but Sherrone. And I think that kind of tells you what, they think of him as a person and as a coach, and keeping this, keeping this thing together, keeping this ship rolling, obviously with a couple of new faces, if things go the way we expect them to.
I'm still having internet issues here, so I'm not able to access everything I want to. But to that point, again, larger, and for folks that have watched our podcast, I apologize if I sound like a broken record on some things, but Chiron Moore has been head coach 1B of this program for a few years, right? You talk about, Jim Harbaugh was still in the building helping game planning. An overwhelming piece of this resurgence of the Michigan football program starting in 2021 was the committee approach to game planning, right? We've heard even the offensive coordinator say, look, this is a team effort. Grant Newsome is helping as much as anybody. Mike Hart, part of the run game, right? Bellamy. We talked about how once Sherrone Moore went from tight end coach to offensive line co-OC, we could see blocking schemes directly from mid-2000s Oklahoma football teams when he was playing there blocking for Adrian Peterson, right? You don't have to squint hard to see Mike Hart's fingerprints on the running backs and the way that they run and the lack of fumbles, things like that, right? Everybody's been putting their own little piece in it for a while. So that's nothing new, right? The big change is going to be, and I guess we'll, how you want to mingle staff into this and the bigger topic, we can get more specific, but I've already seen it brought up. You've been posting intel over at michigan.rivals.com recruiting, right? Yep. Chiron Moore is now the second youngest coach in the Big Ten by 1 month. He has been a monster recruiter since he arrived here. Yep. One of the things I wanted to pull up, and I can't now, is the list of players he's been involved in on the recruitments, but it's outrageous, dude. Yeah, it's Dax, JJ, Donovan. I mean, it's all the offensive linemen, obviously.
Yep.
But he's gone beyond his position room since he's been here, right? There are going to be things that I think could be an upgrade when it comes to recruiting, just from his focus on it. And Josh, if you want to get into some of the things you've been posting over at Maize and Blue Review as well. But I think that's one thing that I think has some folks excited too, is not that Jim Harbaugh didn't care about recruiting and not that he wasn't good at scouting talent. Duh, they were. But hey, this is one of those things where maybe we see a little bit something different with the young, energetic Chiron Moore, who was brought on to be a monster recruiter in the first
place. Right. Yeah, I like to call it Michigan having a bit of a blind spot, especially when it comes to recruiting and NIL. There was blind spots in all levels, from the athletic department down to the actual programs itself. But yeah, I mean, from everything that I've heard, and I've been talking to quite a few people here the last 48 hours, is that there's going to be an increased focus in recruiting. Where Michigan is going to, from what I heard, double the staff of the recruiting department. I don't know what double is like. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but there's going to be a significant investment in people and talent in the recruiting department, which includes a focus on high school scouting. And I don't want to hear any Connor Stallions jokes. It's scouting tape, and you can use phones scouting high school players, but
Jim Harbaugh has to bring him to LA just for the laughs. Like
that would be.
Oh my God,
that'd be hilarious. But so you can the increase in just people in general, more scouting, high school scouting, in particular, what was hammered home to me was on-campus communications. That was kind of the big thing. Having more people on campus to welcome these players and be around these players, because really,
should we bring up the barbecue?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was like 8,000 recruits to 3 staffers. You can't really do much. You got to have more people. And I saw a retweet from someone that was following me saying that North Carolina has more recruiting staffers than Michigan. So it's a need. It's not like he's just saying, hey, this looks like it needs to be. It's a need at this point. There needs to be more people in that department, and that's what's going to happen. Allegedly, that's what I'm told, and all signs point to that happening. But again, I say all this stuff, and actions speak louder than words. So we'll see. And on the recruiting side itself, I was told that they're planning to have kind of a cast a wider net. There were some recruits that Jim Harbaugh kind of stayed away from. And this is no knock, and I'm not trying to knock on Jim Harbaugh on his way out the door, but there were some recruits that he would stay away from, especially ones that may or may not want the bag. He didn't really want to touch those guys, and I can't really blame him. But I think there's going to be more openness to recruit guys who want to get the bag. And that's not saying that Michigan is going to give the bag, but they're going to be open with NIL and say, hey, if you come to Michigan, this is what you could get. And kind of be more open with the figures that these players are getting. Again, it's not pay for play. They're not doing that stuff, but they're wanting to increase, well, more importantly, increase engagement with NIL collectives too, to better that relationship as well too. So, and there's so many other things. They're planning on hiring a prominent NIL firm to help, to help bridge the gap between collectives and Michigan.
Get organized.
Right. More organization. That should be announced soon. I can't really get into more details because I would burn a source and I really would not want to do that. But it's a name that's been reported on through various NIL websites. So like it's known. So it's going to be.
That's the second time Derek's got me in the car.
Oh, I just saw that. Yeah. Jeez. So yes, there's going to be. I'm kind of all over the place here, but the most important part too is that Sherrone wants to be more engaged with NIL collectives, and I know he's already done that. He's been in contact with alumni clubs already. NIL collectives as well. I think I'm trying to word this the right way about Jim Harbaugh without making it look like I'm hating on him. I was told that he was very aloof when it comes to NIL and, engagement when it comes to the fans and donors and things like that. And hey, the aloofness worked, it worked. His process worked. But Chiron Moore isn't Jim Harbaugh. He's got to do his own thing. He's got to separate money from these donors' pockets. So, and his idea is to be, hey, as a head coach, you got to kiss babies and shake hands. You got to do it. And if that means, he goes to an alumni event and schmoozes it up a little bit, then that's fine, as long as it's successful. And that's usually a lot of these coaches, to have successful NIL campaigns, you got to be visible. And Jim Harbaugh, to a certain extent, was visible, but could be more. Juwan Howard, for example, not visible at all, and we can see where that NIL and that program is, and that's a conversation saved for our next podcast. But visibility matters, and I think that's kind of what Sherrone has quickly kind of realized. Like, hey, if I can be more visible, the likelihood of more support, and even getting for the people to get something out of it. You talk about the impact program that Jim Harbaugh had, which who knows what's going to happen to that program now that Jim's gone, because that was Jim's thing. And now, people are giving money to that, and they didn't get enough. They didn't really get as much money as they'd hoped. Now it's like, well, this is the only time I'm really going to see Jim after I give him this money. Like, what am I going to get in return? And access, as simple as that, access to the program, access to coaches, that stuff matters to people, especially people who care about the program and want to donate, feeling some sort of ROI outside of, you're not going to invest. If you invest money into the program, you're not going to get money in return. I mean, you're not get that kind of ROI, but the experience is
people want more than just feeling good about it too.
Right. People want to just, it's more than just writing a check and then never seeing anything again. There's more to it than that. And there's layers to it. And that's kind of what, at least from people that I've spoken with, is that, more is, working on that part to kind of bridge that gap. So, and I want to mention this comment because it's very true. From I brought the why do fans have to donate to colleges that make hundreds of millions of dollars?
I agree.
Hey, I don't disagree with you, but that's just what it is right now. That's the current climate. Unless there's some sort of profit sharing.
That's why Jim was screaming for the revenue share, right?
Yeah, but the revenue
it's the right thing for players and probably easier for him too, right?
Right. Yeah, and the revenue sharing part of it is not feasible right now, but the NIL part is. So you got to be able to work within those confines. And hey, look, Dylan, I totally agree. It shouldn't be up to people to pay for these collectives and stuff, but It
But
should
to your
be
point, that's why they need to be getting something
right. That's
back.
why they need to do it, because they don't have another choice.
Right.
So, that's just unfortunately the side effect of this NIL culture right now, is that, programs can't do anything about it, but you have to rely on, there's part of it, part of it is the small chunk of it where, you've got the everyday fan that donates $10, $20, $50 a month or total. And then you've got the wealthy donors who really fork up the big bucks. You shouldn't have to rely on one side of the fence and the other. But, and
And to
again,
be
as I
clear, it's not
mentioned,
that they're not doing anything. They've done a lot of interesting, engaging things with players
right,
and merchandise and
exactly,
stuff like that. But it's
exactly. That
more of
are
that. More
there
of
is, there is some level of ROI in that, and that it's going to the players. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I can understand people saying, well, why should I have to give my money to make this successful? I get it. Trust me, I am fully on board with that. I don't think it should be necessary, but it's the NCAA, and that's just what we are at right now. And it's a fair argument to make. I totally respect it and understand it. And I also respect and understand why people would want to donate too. There's two sides to it. And that's good, but you shouldn't have to rely on, I guess, I don't want to call people average Joes and Janes, but that's kind of what it is with the majority of
Well,
these
yeah,
smaller, like the One More Year fund. A lot of that was based on,
yeah.
the everyday person, donating whatever they can, at that moment in time.
Well, let's be honest. Ticket prices have gone up significantly.
Yep.
Right. The cost to park and everything else, the hat, just because it's night. I mean, all that stuff has gone up. Right. And Michigan, of course, is going to raise season ticket prices going into next year. The schedule is better, to their credit. I mean, there's a lot more elite games, but you're already kind of maximizing what you can get out of people. So I understand that sentiment. I agree with it completely. I've been screaming forever. Michigan's getting $100 million a year just to be broadcast. Right. But
Right.
that's just a legal thing right now. And you've got people in Congress that are fighting for something, but who has what's interests in mind? And to Harbaugh's credit on NIL, the way it was worded to me is Jim has been an incredible advocate for NIL for his players, but maybe not for his program.
Right.
And that might sound confusing, but when you think about it in the context of what Josh is saying, he's at these signing events. He's making these public comments to a level no other coach is, right? But the politics game of it. And when it comes to, I don't even want to call it pay for play, because there is an element of pay for play that's literally not allowed. The NCAA is pretending to enforce it, I guess, a little bit with the Florida State and Florida interactions. But let's be clear. There's a line Michigan is willing to cross when it comes to that, because Will Johnson signed NIL deals the day he signed his NLI. Now, unless they came up with that 5 minutes before, those discussions were had ahead of time.
Yep.
Bryce Underwood was aware of what NIL packages were going to exist when he came here. We talked about Michigan doing things the right way with NIL for a long time in terms of rewarding the players that are here. You brought up those who stay one more year, right? And using it in the portal. Some of that's just, dude, there's schools giving stupid amounts of money. I'm not going to say any dollars because I think a lot of it are inflated and fake, but we've seen Michigan lose commits, well, for the sake of just understanding, 3- and 4-star defensive tackle or edge players that are getting money from a Southern school. And it's like, I'm not giving you, that's crazy. I'm not giving you that much money before you're even on campus. That's crazy. It's bad for my locker room. I don't like it. I never want to say, like, when people are like, oh, kid's chasing a bag. Okay. I don't have a problem with him getting his worth or having interest in that. But what I think Michigan's done a really good job of doing is making sure that's not the reason you're coming here, because you're going to leave next year or the year afterwards anyway.
Yeah, and to be clear, that's still going to be the thing. But, there are 5 stars that can be culture fits. That fit what
you don't need to throw the person out right away. It's fair for a kid to ask that question, right?
Right.
Real quick on it, just because I brought it up, somebody said, hey, can you recruit any elite level? Ready? Primary or secondary? Daxton Hill, JJ McCarthy, Donovan Edwards, AJ Henning, Mozzie Smith, Brady McGregor, Tyler Morris, Sprague, Frazier, obviously, Trevor Keegan, Rayshawn Benny, Makari Page, Carson Barnhart. You get the point. Okay. This dude, like,
He knows how to recruit.
Yeah, Roman Wilson, Eric
And he's going to surround himself with other coaches that can recruit too.
You, sir, just planted a segue. Let's do it.
All right,
other coaches.
Cool. All right. No, but it's true though. Like it's not just up to him to recruit. He's going to recruit very well. We know that. I mean, he has shown that. But you also have to have assistants that go out there and recruit too, and they do. But there is going to be a little bit of a shuffling of the Michigan staff moving forward if things are going the way we expect them to.
Yeah.
So that how, on top of the investment in the recruiting department, how does recruiting change under Sherrone Moore and new staff? We'll have to see who he fills those staff positions with, of course. But I mean, for him on a personal level, there's no doubt that he can recruit. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Let's go down the staff. I know that this is a big question a lot of folks have. So we'll start with the one that we know for sure, because now that Chiron Moore is the head coach, he is no longer the offensive coordinator or the offensive line coach. I put out an article with some offensive coordinator candidates. Top of the list, most obvious to me, seems the internal promotion of Kirk Campbell. I know you have some things to share on that. We'll get on that. Campbell, again, the way this offense works, was heavily involved in the game planning, has some play calling experience from his time at Old Dominion, was at Penn State for a little bit. And then to your point, talking about recruiting, we've seen what Kirk Campbell means for recruiting tangibly, right? I don't want to be hyperbolic here. He saved the Jaden Davis recruitment.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. Michigan did not ultimately land Bryce Underwood. They had no chance when Kirk Campbell came on staff, right? And he had Michigan in that battle, at least to the last few months, right? So, and Carter Smith skyrocketing up rankings, shocking, I know. Florida player of the year, right? I brought this up with Mason Graham being California player of the year. It's a really good state. You got to be a good player to win that. But anyway, couple external candidates that I listed as well, but this feels like maybe it's trending towards Kirk.
Yeah, right now I hesitate to say
I'll
that.
say real quick, guys, we are speculating
right
on a lot of this. There's things we're hearing, whatever.
Yeah.
If we knew who the coach definitely was going to be, they'd be announced. So
right, or we say it with more certainty than
for sure.
But from what I've heard, it sounds like Kirk Campbell is right now likely the favorite to be the offensive coordinator. Has offensive calling experience, obviously called the plays helped call the plays when Sherrone was gone on his 1-game suspension. And
was that the first game of the year?
Second. Yeah, first game. I see this, that all that stuff is so long ago. I can't even remember.
Blur, dude.
Yeah, it is a blur. it all just kind of melded into one. But as Jason mentioned here, that's what I was just about to get into. Campbell makes a lot of sense. Offensive coordinator experience at Old Dominion, connects with recruits, easy transition. Yeah, kind of like Sherrone, you have a built-in guy there that kind of you can slot in, makes sense. He's been around the program for years. He's been there for multiple years, not as a position coach. Obviously, last year was his first year as QB coach, but a guy that's been an offensive analyst in this offense, which and we don't even know if this offense is going to be the same. There's going to be some tweaks, I'm sure, with Sherrone, but this program is going to be relatively the same in terms of offensive and defensive schemes. I maybe more so. I feel more confident about that offensively. Maybe defensively might be a little different. We'll get into the defensive coordinator talk here in a second. But Campbell, he's a guy you can just plug and play for a lot of reasons. I mean, it doesn't have the full vast offensive play calling experience. The Old Dominion obviously is not on Michigan's level, but he's familiar with the offense, familiar with how plays are called. It's worth a shot. He's good recruiting. He's really good at connecting with quarterback recruits. I'd be really curious to see how he connects with, running backs, receivers,
Right.
tight ends, offensive linemen, and stuff like that. If you expand and make him cast a wider net, and of course, he talks to these kids. It's not like he's just talking to quarterbacks and quarterbacks only. He talks to a lot of kids, but allowing him to kind of, as the kids say, cook a little bit and let him go out and do a couple of things. Who knows? You might see, more success on the recruiting trail, and you might see an offense that people might like. There might be some extra, wrinkles added in there. So that one makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. And then there's another one that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons too. And that's bumping Grant Newsome from tight ends to offensive line. Another one that makes a lot of sense that would have happened regardless of whether Sherrone is the head coach or Jim Harbaugh was the head coach.
Yeah, we've been talking about that Moore Newsome swap.
Yeah, Harbaugh earlier this year on one of the Inside Michigan Football shows earlier in the year mentioned that if Chiron were to move on, that he'd be in the fast track to be the next offensive line coach. So, as far as I'm aware, the assumption is that that's going to go to Grant Newsome. I know I know that they haven't exactly discussed it yet, but Newsome is, there's kind of this assumption that it's going to happen. This kind of this, I wouldn't say understanding that it's going to happen, but it's kind of one of those things where it's, it just makes sense. It makes sense. And now, which leads to, all right, now you have a tight end position. Not tight end position is open. Do you fill it with a tight end coach? I don't know. That's kind of it where Sherrone has to figure out a couple of things. Obviously, you got Ron Bellamy, who's likely going to stay. And I think the big question now is what Michigan's going to do with Mike Hart. And that one's up in the air. I don't want to
say something real quick before we get into that. So I do agree with the moves you're saying, moving to offensive line. As far as promoting Campbell, there are some external OC candidates that interest me. I think from a continuity standpoint of Campbell and Newsome going up, it's important on offense because you have so many changes coming too. But also, to your point, like with the tight end coach, maybe Moore still works with tight ends. And if you're looking to improve the recruiting on your team, it's a lot easier to fill some of these position coach roles with ace recruiters than it is to get an awesome offensive coordinator and an awesome recruiter. Right. So if you feel like Campbell can do both of those, it makes sense to internal promote. But I've already seen the idea of, pass game coordinator for Campbell, run game for Mike Hart. Mike Hart sticking with the staff is up in the air, which you were going to get to. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. That's been kind of the one, even I heard even before this was announced,
right.
That it's kind of, it is up. Probably the best way to say it is up in the air. The vibe, I guess right now is, heading towards him not being on this staff. And it was kind of worded to me as, a personal decision to not be on the staff. I don't know what that means. I don't want to speculate either.
No.
I don't know what the reason would be, but it just sounds like, and I don't get the sense it's going to be because he's going to follow Jim to LA. I don't get that sense too.
Hart's had aspirations for years.
Yeah.
Beyond being the running back coach at Michigan.
Right. And he didn't want the Michigan job, the head coaching job, and he knew he wasn't going to get it. So it's kind of at the point where he might look into other opportunities. And I know he kind of wants to be a MAC level coach and cut his teeth there and work his way up. So obviously there's no MAC level head coaching positions available. The only one that was Buffalo, and that was filled the other day. So I don't know what that would look like with Hart not involved in the picture. I know I can say that Sherrone has spoken with DeMarco Murray from Oklahoma, but I think that's only going to be that, just a talk. I get from talking to multiple people in Oklahoma and involved with Oklahoma. He loves, that's his school. He loves it there. He doesn't care about the money. He's not in it for the money. He's in it because he wants to be involved in the game. And the only reason he wants to leave Oklahoma is if he goes back to TV. So the obvious Sooner connection between Chiron Moore and DeMarco Murray makes a ton of sense. The way it was worded to me was that they would not be surprised if the two talked, but it probably wouldn't get further than that, and that's fine. But it's good to see him swinging for the fences,
right?
You know, taking the big swings for some big names and some good recruiters. DeMarco Murray is a good recruiter, so yeah, I mean, there's going to be decisions to make. There's going to be holes to fill. We haven't even talked about the defensive side of the ball yet, but there's going to be some shuffling on offense, and I'm glad that offensive line and offensive coordinator is going to be filled with people and not just I never assumed it was going to be this way, that Sherrone would say, "Oh, I'll still take," he'll have his hands in both, but
he's really want him to be the head coach.
Right. You just want him to be the head coach. You don't want him to have too many hands dipped into too many things, but he'll still obviously be involved with the offensive line. But yeah, he can finally just focus on the team and not focus on a million things at once. Well, now he has to focus on a million program things at once, but not a million things with his position. So, right. Yeah, the offense as a whole, staff wise, is probably going to look a little different. I don't know if he's going to fill a tight end position. I would assume so. I would assume he just kind of keep the same like staff position wise, linebacker, special teams, safeties, all that kind of stuff, as fillable jobs. But he's got some work to do. He's got some work to do. And as far as I'm aware, this stuff is already in the works. So, we'll kind of see how quickly that'll go, but definitely he's got some work to do, and he's got to do it quick.
I think at minimum, the DeMarco Murray conversation is a clue into what we've been talking about in terms of what Moore's vision and priority would be around recruiting. And the state of Texas comes to mind, right? Moore playing at Oklahoma and his own connections to Texas. DeMarco Murray got Taylor Tatum, a running back recruit that Michigan was interested in, right? Has his ties to Texas. And we'll go ahead and move into defense here. When I made my article about defensive coordinators, candidates, internally, a lot of people have talked about Steve Klingscale, already co-defensive coordinator. There's been murmurs for a long time about whether he would even want the DC role, or if he would want to continue to essentially coordinate the pass defense and do what what that looks like. He's obviously a monster recruiter you want to keep on the staff as well. And then externally, we talked about, do you find somebody like a Jim Leonard who's already been established on their own and maybe there's some scheme fit, but is going to do their own thing largely? Do you promote from within, like we said with Klink, or do you go to the well that has served you so well for 3 years, and that's the Ravens? And I'm not going to lie, I expected Minter gone all year anyway. I've been looking at Ravens coaching rosters and digging deep into that for weeks. The name I identified early, and our chat is already on the list, and we've heard early too is being involved, is Zachary Orr.
Yeah.
So he's a linebacker coach for the Ravens right now. He left briefly for 1 year, went to the Jaguars, ended up coming back. He's been under Mike Macdonald for the last 2 years. What I like about him is it's not just like, oh, it's another Raven guy. Mike Macdonald coaches linebackers.
Right.
Right. So those two have been hand in hand for the last 2 years. He just happened to coach the best linebacker unit in the NFL this year, right? Like he's been doing it for 6 or 7 years, right? His parallels to Macdonald are actually incredibly similar. He's young. What is he? 31, 32, something like that. He's a
He's
young
30,
dude.
31 or something. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
31. So that's well, that is young. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a risk in its own right there. But
But again, the young, energetic coach. I mean, this is a guy that can relate to younger players differently. But beyond that part of his resume, something that stuck out to me right away was he played his high school ball at DeSoto in Texas, powerhouse, right?
Yep.
And again, just this thing of Florida hasn't gone really well for Michigan in the last few years. And I wonder if in Moore's mind with his own connections, I was like, man, here's another dude that young, energetic, played ball, NFL connections to Texas, Murray, or like they're kind of in the same vein. And Orr checks a lot of boxes because he hits that and he's the Raven scheme. If you want to talk about maybe a little, and again, speculating here, but a little bit we've heard about communication with him and maybe Klink and Elston, where that defensive staff could be going.
Yeah. I want to point this out, Mr. Martini here. John Harbaugh can find some freaking coaches. That man, both Harbaughs, John and Jim, they can both spot talent. They've got a really good eye for talent. Credit to both of them. They're just really good at what they do.
Is he the most tenured coach in the NFL now? It's got to be close because Carroll. Well, he was before Carroll may play anyway. It's him or Tomlin with Belichick gone.
Yeah, I think it might be.
That's crazy. I'm gonna look that up while you're talking about the defense. Sorry, my ADHD. I gotta know now.
No, I think you may be right, but
this is wild to think about.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Orr is definitely a name that we've heard. I don't know if it's an echo chamber of people that talk amongst each other. Oh, Andy Reid. No, he's not tenured. He's the longest in the NFL, but he's not hasn't been that long with Kansas City.
It's been a while though.
Really?
I know. I bet it's been over 10 years at least.
Oh, Tomlin, falling snow. It's Tomlin by 1 year, 17 years.
Okay. I figured those were going to be the closest. Yeah. Anyway.
We got way sidetracked. Anyway. Orr is a name that we have been told about. I haven't heard anything in regards to anything consistent in terms of what they've for sure spoken about the job or he's for sure on the list, but he's a name that keeps popping up with people I talk to. And again, I don't know. It's funny because it's from people that wouldn't like interact with each other. Like it wouldn't be from people that would, share stuff amongst each other, but I don't know if that's more so just a echo chamber of names that have been bounced around. But I mean, he's definitely a guy that's being named. And if you're talking about wanting to dip into that, Baltimore pool of talent with coaches, and if, or wants to be a DC, as someone mentioned in our comments, it's a great shot to do it now. You're a 31-year-old coach who could be a DC at Michigan. I mean,
with players ready to run your scheme.
You're set up
to succeed.
Yeah, with a ready-made scheme right there, you're on the fast track to be either very, very good or very, very bad. I mean, there's no in between. And following up Minter, you have to be very good. So, I mean, he's definitely a name. Klink is definitely a guy that will get a look. Would probably likely still stay on as co-DC. I don't think that title will change. I mean, that title was earned in his second year with Michigan because he hit contract parameters.
Conclusion that was going to happen. Yeah.
So, I have no doubts that Klink is he's going to be with the staff. There's no doubts there. But yeah, the DC one is going to be interesting. Do you stick with that, a Baltimore tree, or do you go to talk to Lynn from USC, who's only been there for a month? I mean,
that was the name I had on there too.
I would give him a call
because of the play calling experience.
Right,
he's got a year.
But we'll see. Does he want to go with someone with experience? I don't know. I mean, would it be smart to go with someone with experience? Maybe, but dipping into that Ravens pool is the juice worth the squeeze? I would say so. For right now, as far as how well that's worked, I would
and
say
just
so.
because it's worked before doesn't mean it's going to work every time.
Right.
But
exactly.
McDonald didn't have play calling experience. Minter had 1 year at Vanderbilt, and
Yeah.
he wasn't running his defense. That
Right.
was something when Minter was first hired, and people were like looking at Vanderbilt numbers. They're like, "What?" He was running. I feel like I always butchers. Is it Clark Leah? I can't remember how to pronounce it. He left Notre Dame. He was running his 3-3-5 scheme. So it wasn't even his defense that first year he was there, right?
Yeah.
So, if I want to live in a fantasy land and say my dream scenario, it's Lynn comes to DC for a year or two and Orr's your linebackers coach, right?
Right.
But again, this isn't.
Well, Jason brings up a good point here too, and someone else on our message boards brought up a good point too. Jason, for those listening to the podcast, he says, Orr can also coach the linebackers. True. So do you go, and this is nothing sourced or anything like this.
No, but this is where you can start to get creative.
Right. And this was brought up by someone on our message boards too, and I can't remember the name, and I'm sorry if you're listening and I haven't given you credit, but I can't remember who said it. But do you go co-defensive coordinators? Do you go co-DC or linebackers and co-DC defensive backs Clink? Because, when I say defensive backs, it's not just corners, because we talk about Clink as coaching all the positions. And yes, Jay Harbaugh coached safeties, and you can kind of include those two guys working together. So I'd assume they'd hire a safeties coach too. But do you do that route? And again, this is just speculation. Do you do that route where you name co-DC and have or call the plays or make it a collaborative process? I think that idea is probably a lot easier to sell to the less optimistic Michigan fan by, who would say, oh, he's 31 years old. He's never called plays. He's only been a coach for blah, 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 blah. I think that's an easier sell where you can say, all right, well, you've got a co-defensive coordinator already in Clink. And, I think it would be an easier sell, and that would be, almost the route I would take personally, is to bring Orr through and then kind of have those two guys work together. A guy that both guys have experience with the defense. Clink being the co-defensive coordinator who was very intimately involved with the defense the last 2 years, well, 3 really. I would probably make that call. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen. I think maybe Orr might get the DC job in itself, or they might go in a completely different direction. But having those two guys working together and giving Orr experience where maybe one day you can say, all right, if he doesn't leave and get hired as a DC somewhere else, he can kind of give the reins to Orr and have him get that training. But as your average fan mentioned here, play calling will always be the key. 100% agree.
Minter's a genius, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Either you got it or you don't. So that's the big thing. Does he have it? Does he not? Does Clink have it? Does he not?
And that might not be an experience thing either.
Right. And it's exactly as your average fan mentioned too. You can't teach that. That you can't teach that. So there is a little bit of, I guess, some unknowns if you go that route. Obviously, this point could be moot tomorrow because they could make a defensive coordinator hire tomorrow for all we know. But I think it just makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons to stay with that Baltimore pool of talent. So we'll kind of see where that goes.
And I think it's John asked, will he hire special teams coach? So you kind of touched on this with Jay coaching safeties and special teams, but Clink obviously had his hand in safeties as well. So is that something you do where Clink oversees the entire secondary and you hire a special team specific coach?
Well, we haven't even mentioned the fact that we're expecting Jay to follow Jim to LA. We haven't mentioned that. No, you're fine. No, I should have mentioned that already. Yeah, we're expecting Jay to follow Jim to LA too, by the way.
Yeah.
So, sorry, back to your point.
No, yeah, sorry. At least I'm kind of blurred between what we've talked about. But yeah, like you can get creative where, you add or, Bellamy was hired initially to coach safeties, and, maybe you bring in a Ryan Osborne, who was a defensive assistant and made a lot of help, or had a lot of help in hand with what the edge was doing. Was just a DC for a year in Charlotte. I'm not saying make him DC, but if he comes in and he's doing outside linebacker, defensive end, and that frees up Elston to do what, you can get creative with the staff is what I'm saying. I don't think it has to be a straightforward, this position. You can, sorry, I love making analogies. We always talk about with the offensive line, right? Sometimes you've got some designated, this is my left tackle, this is my left guard.
Yep.
And sometimes you roll out the ball, you figure out who your 5 best offensive linemen are, and then you figure out the role afterwards. Depending on what Moore feels like his priorities are when he's building this staff, you can say, look, I want these types of coaches and these types of recruiters, and then we'll figure out the positions, right? Or, we've seen weird structures in the past. Other teams do it. There's some names I've heard as well with safeties coach. Is it Zach Spavital? Is that how you say it? He's over in Maryland now, safeties coach. He has some lower level DC experience, has a connection to Moore. He's got options. And obviously, look, we sometimes we talk about this like you're just moving puzzle pieces around. These are people with their own career aspirations, with their own families, right? Jim Harbaugh has made a decision that is going to trickle down to literally hundreds of people. And they've got to make their own decisions. And then people coming will have the same thing where they're going to have to make decisions about moving their families and their children. And, it's a big deal, right? So I think it's easy for all of us to be like, oh, I want this dude. There's a lot to it, right? A guy like Ben Herbert is going to have to make that choice. We've heard a lot of positive things on Ben Herbert staying. I've speculated just on paper. He just signed a contract. He makes more money in college than he will in the NFL.
Yeah.
And the role is there, but
I'll kind of give you a little inside baseball right now. I'm working on confirming that Ben Herbert's staying.
Okay.
I haven't gotten it completely confirmed yet, but
we've had good vibes.
Right. I have a sense. I'm hearing some good things about him staying. So
and without getting into too much detail, he has family reasons that would lead him to want to stay here. And then honestly, just for his impact in his role, again, unless Harbaugh was able to get him a different type of role with the Chargers, you don't run a gym in the NFL like you do in college, right? These guys come in, they do their own work, they have their own trainers. It's just not the same thing. So, but anyway, don't confirm he might go. Yeah. Like I said, if we say he's staying, it's because he is, right? So we're largely trying to fill you guys in with what we're hearing and speculate and just let you know what we are hearing. So, because it's out now, I want to touch on his contract, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about some things he said. It is a 5-year deal for him, ends up being base 5.5. I don't think that's anything too crazy for a first-time head coach. There's obviously some standard risers that are built into it. Some good incentives that are, I mean, off the top of my head, if these are either the exact same as Harbaugh's or pretty close. Big Ten, just getting to the conference championship game is $250,000. Winning it is $500,000. So there's $750,000 right there. He's got $500,000 he can make from CFP appearances. He's semi appearances, another $500,000, $750,000 for getting to the national championship, another $1 million. So, he can add another $4 million or so on top just from performance. And then there's some other things involved as well with academic achievements through the program and some other benefits he'll receive as well, automobile and access to stuff like that. So
I was told 2 days ago, $6 million. It was 6. I was told $6 million. So that's why I don't jump to naming numbers, because they're almost never correct, or they're at
Right.
least ballparked. So in this case, ballparked.
Well, and honestly, some of it actually, I got to get to what John just said because I can't believe I didn't mention him when we were talking about the defensive staff. Dylan Roney, and yes, you did spell that correctly. I still could see a scenario where somebody like Orr, who has a linebacker background, is hired as DC, and somebody like Roney is moved to linebacker coach. Because again, if you care about recruiting, I hear Dylan Roney's name as much as anybody on this staff. When you talk to recruits, they love him, right? Another guy, former player up at Ferris, I believe.
Yep.
He's had a huge impact on the edge. And he's basically become the new Ryan Osborne in some ways. He is high football IQ, just a really incredible personality, just one of those dudes that the way there's one recruit I talked to a bunch, and he said he just has his presence, man, and you care what he's saying to you, and he's an impressive young talent. So yeah, getting him on the staff would not be a bad thing. Back on offense, we've brought up Denard Robinson and what he's been doing in recruiting. Does he maybe become running back coach? Does he get a more elevated role in the recruiting department? Lots of choices, lots of moving parts. But, and then, yeah, like I was just going to say with the contract, with the multipliers and things I could add in. And also because his real base salary is only $500,000, right?
Oh, it is $6 million. Well, look at that. I was actually right.
Well, what I was reading just said 5, but.
Sorry to my guy that I just got called out. It's all good.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So it's $5 million year one, $500,000 retention per year.
Oh, okay.
So that gets it up to 6. Yeah, this isn't. So yeah, and let's be honest. If he's succeeding by year 5, that contract's already been torn up and renewed by year 3.
Oh yeah, if he's succeeding by year 3, he's gonna get a deal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right.
I think Roney is definitely next man up. I think it'd be pretty safe to say that he's Elston's understudy. Him and Elston work really well together. So I would not be shocked at all if he ends up on this staff in some capacity, whether it's this year or the next. He's due. So
yeah,
we'll see. I will see.
Just real quick, some things that Chiron Moore said with this announcement of him being the 21st head coach. I want to thank Coach Harbaugh for the faith that he has displayed in me over the past 6 years and for supporting my growth as a football coach during that time. Thanks to Athletic Director Ward Manuel for putting his faith and trust in me to be the next leader of this football program. I also want to thank President Santa Ono and members of the Board of Regents for believing me as well, guys. This is cool. I've been preparing my entire coaching career for this opportunity, and I can't think of a better place to be head coach than the University of Michigan. We will do everything each day as a team to continue the legacy of championship football that has been played at Michigan for the past 144 years. Our standards will not change. We will be smart, tough, dependable, relentless, enthusiastic, championship-level team that loves football and plays with a passion for the game, the winged helmet, and each other. We will also continue to achieve excellence off the field, in the classroom, and in our communities. I'm excited to start working in this new role with our players, coaches, and staff. What makes him unique to me is after Rich Rod, there was this obsession with the term Michigan man.
Yeah.
And I think it moved from a character thing to this idea that you had to have been at Michigan before or whatever. And as I've explained before, multiple programs hire people that have come through because, like, that's what you do. You have connections to these people, right? Mm-hmm. Does Jim Harbaugh go from the NFL San Francisco 49ers to Michigan if he doesn't have the connections he has to this program? Probably not, right? He's your dream scenario. He was a coveted coach who happens to have a connection to your program.
Yeah.
Right? But on the back of Rich Rod, Michigan felt lost. It had lost its identity. And you go and get Brady Hoke, who's got a connection to a program, and he pounds the podium and says, "This is Michigan, for God's sakes."
Mm-hmm.
And that was played in the stadium. It was on shirts and posters. It was like, we're still Michigan, right? And they were saying it, but not doing it. That's not a shot at Brady Hoke. I've said before, the pressure on that man running this program, trying to restore it, it takes a special individual, right? But anyway, Chiron Moore is a unique situation because now that he's been in this program for 6 years and he's grown from tight end coach to offensive line coach to co-OC to OC and now to head coach, I feel like he's been taught this program and the traditions and the culture of it. He's learned it from the best man possible in Jim Harbaugh, but he's also got his own set of eyes, right? So he can bring something a little bit new and different while still understanding what makes Michigan great, right? Like that's what makes him such a good hire for me. And sometimes it's stupid stuff. We get mad about Rich Rod taking the wings off the helmet because they had to earn their wings in camp. Remember that? Or he gives a corner freshman the number 1 jersey. What the hell are you doing? You can't do that with the number 1 jersey, right? Some of that's stupid, but it's part of college football, man. Those little things of identities in the program. But overall, the toughness and the culture that he speaks to. And as he just said here, K6R. Look, we don't know what comes in the future, right? Not to cliche quote Jim, but I think there is a chance that Michigan could be set up with a guy for a really long time here. And maybe you don't have to worry about the NFL stuff every year, hopefully.
It's funny. I want to make a couple of points here, but I want to point out too, crazy that Steve here, crazy that we got Sherrone out of the Dan Enos.
Oh my God.
That's so true. It's funny how Dan Enos' decision to come to Michigan and then leave 2 weeks later kind of really set all of this in motion.
That's really wild.
That's a really good point, Steve. I didn't even think about that at all. That's a really good point. That's crazy to think about.
Somebody asked where Moore was before. Tight end coach at Central Michigan, was also assistant head coach, recruiting coordinator. Before that, he was at Louisville under Charlie Strong. When Charlie Strong got the job in Texas, he did not go with Texas, went up to Central. And then before that, he got his start as a GA at Oklahoma. I think he was at a JUCO or a CC for a couple of years first, went to Oklahoma. I mean, we're talking Bob Stoops, Venables, Sumlin, Kevin. I mean, just the loaded staff of the mid-2000s. Oklahoma was there as a GA for a little bit there, coaching O-line. So it's quite the rise for him. Don't get me wrong. I get people's like, hey, is he ready for it? We think he is. But you don't know.
The big thing for Sherrone is that he doesn't have to win the press conference tomorrow. I think the big thing with Michigan in the past is that, you have to win the press conference.
Yeah.
That was because Brady Hook was selling hope. He was selling hope. Rich Rod, obviously, you got to win the press conference because you're selling hope and you replace Lloyd Carr.
And Rich Rod lost the press conference when he said the Ohio State game was the same as any other game. You remember that?
Right.
Right. And that was it. And he lost. And I knew what he meant. He meant we're going to take every game serious, whatever. That doesn't fly. Right.
No, you don't say that. You don't say that in a press conference setting. Sherrone has been around. You know what you're getting with Sherrone. Michigan is successful because Sherrone helped it get to this point. He doesn't have to go out there and slam his fist on the table and say, "Oh, this is Michigan, for God's sake." This blah blah blah. He doesn't have to do that. Michigan's already at a position where it's saying itself, "This is Michigan." This is what Michigan is: winning national championships. He doesn't have to come out and prove anything. This team is under his help has proven it. Obviously, he's going to have to lead the way now. But he doesn't have to come out and be this big, make it a big deal, make it this big spectacle or whatever. It just
a really good point, man.
On what you're doing. Yes, there's going to be pressure, but there's not. You don't have to. He doesn't have to come out. There's no pressure on him tomorrow to make these big statements of what this program is going to look like. Yeah, he's going to get those questions, and yeah, he's going to be asked about succeeding, being a succession to Jim Harbaugh, but it doesn't, what you're getting. What you see is what you get with Sherrone Moore. There's going to be nothing. There's no pressure. No pressure about this, about tomorrow, I should say. No pressure about tomorrow. Yes, there's going to be pressure in the future. However,
They were at Central together. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. He doesn't have to go out and win the press conference tomorrow. He just needs to do his thing, keep it going. Just keep it going. That's the most important part.
And again, a cliche I've been talking about since the sign stealing, scouting, whatever nonsense broke. I told people, like, look, if there's anything we've learned from Deflategate or whatever you want to call the trash can thing with the Astros, right? All of this stuff is overblown. Maybe not with the Astros. I mean, literally having devices on you telling you what pitch is coming is pretty intense. But in terms of Deflategate, it was Tom Brady, it was the Patriots, easy target. That entire thing was overblown. And then they won the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah.
And Roger Goodell had to hand that trophy to Belichick and Brady. And then they kept winning.
Yep.
And now do Jets fans bring it up or whoever? Sure. But you look stupid. And we've already seen online.
Sorry to all the Jets fans that are watching.
Yeah, I didn't mean it.
You guys caught my necessary stray there.
My bad, dog. I'm just picking they're clear rivals, right? But my point is I've seen a lot of even Ohio State fans that are like, guys, we look stupid. They won, right? It was fun, whatever. But if you actually think that Stallions is the reason Michigan was winning these games, you're an idiot, right? Like even their own fan base is starting to say, okay, because they won, right? Dude, you saw the vultures flying around before the Penn State game. And then before Ohio State. Iowa, not so much. But I mean, there were trolls. I mean, Pat McAfee and dudes picking Iowa to win. Like, okay. Right. And then Alabama, right? They were circling, right? And then Washington. And then they win it all. There's nothing else you can say. So Sherrone Moore doesn't have to win the press conference. To win his area, he's got to win football games. It's that simple, right? Like winning just does everything. Now, if Jim Harbaugh was coming back this year, I don't think I'm predicting undefeated season for Michigan next year, even with Jim Harbaugh back. So once everything settles and you get through camp and stuff, maybe we'll start to see where expectations lie for Chiron Moore. Meeting or exceeding them is the goal, whatever they are. And then, continuing it, keep it going, right? That's the goal. And that's how he's going to be judged, and how long of a leash he has on that, we'll see. But I'm telling you, winning on the field, winning off the field, we've already seen, a couple recruits comment their interest has gone up with Chiron Moore becoming the head coach. I love Jim Harbaugh to death, but since he's left, one of my favorite things, people are just saying all these funny stories about him, right? Blake Corum talked about how they sat in his office for 2 minutes and he didn't say anything. He still got Blake Corum. Jordan Marshall, I know, made some similar comments about Harbaugh kind of being his own cat. There are dudes that Michigan didn't land because they didn't jive with Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, that's just part of it, right? And I've brought up multiple times the 4-for-4 photo of Blake Frazier, Jordan Marshall, Brady Prescorn, Jaden Davis, and Harbaugh wasn't even here that weekend. And Chiron Moore is dead center, right? That's why we've continued to kind of say, this isn't first year coordinator just got promoted, blah, blah, blah. Let me go through some questions here, and then we'll probably get close to wrapping up unless the questions keep rolling in. 4-for-4 Sherrone. It's really, really early here, Josh, but you had some early indications with Gatlin Bear. Mm-hmm. Do we know it felt like it wasn't going to matter, right? I mean, but do we have any idea because he's the only guy they're waiting on at this point.
Yeah. I don't think anything changes. I still think Michigan is going to be the team to beat with Chiron Moore. I know for a fact that Chiron and Gatlin and his family are comfortable with Chiron. They really love Chiron. So yeah, I honestly at this point,
I was trying to remember who they lost. It was Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
He was the one that was like, this cat's weird.
Yeah. He's not wrong. Yeah, I think I'm pretty close to putting in a prediction for Michigan at this point for Gatlinburg. I mean, even before all of this, we were hearing that Michigan was the team to beat. Oh, we blocked a troll.
It wasn't that bad. I'm just not in the mood.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I have a low tolerance for stupid.
Wasn't that bad, but whatever.
Yeah, well, whatever. But yeah, no, I feel pretty good about Gatlinburg, and yeah, I would not be surprised if Michigan's the team to beat. I said all along, the faster that Harbaugh gets wrapped up to coming back, that the faster. Oh, and Trevor's just gone, so it's just me now. The faster that now he's back. He's back. He's back, folks. He's back. Anyway,
I haven't done that in a while. Do you have an iMac?
Yes, I do.
You use the mouse that came with it, right?
Yeah.
So you know how you can like swipe with your finger left or right to do
Oh, yeah.
So like when I went over to click the comment and move the mouse like just snagged for a second, but my finger kept going.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yeah.
It's amateur hour over here. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Gatlinburg. Yeah, that was nightmarish for a second. Yeah, I know. Just talking to me, I mean, that sounds terrible. You would want to talk to me for however long I'd stay on for this thing. I'd probably continue on this Gatlinburg conversation for like it somehow managed to turn into an hour ramble session. But long story short, yes, I think he's going to come to Michigan. I'm hesitant to say a done deal, but I'm pretty close to putting in a prediction. I need to hear a little more before I feel comfortable doing it, but keeping Sherrone Moore and keeping that culture, I think, I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good right now.
You've got people, your tattoos are catching attention.
Oh, yeah, I have quite a few of those bad boys.
Yeah, mine are all pretty much hidden except for the puzzle piece on my arm.
Yeah, mine are all over up the arms.
Dude, I want to start getting into forearms so bad, but then it's like
I am a degenerate.
I will not get a real mouse. I like my mouse.
Yeah, get one that doesn't have to be charged on the bottom.
Okay, that I will say. Like, so like my keyboard needs to be charged right now.
Yeah.
But look.
Yeah.
So I can still use the thing. Why the hell?
Virgil. Hello, Virgil, Manchester, England. Hello.
Shit. Here we go.
Is it hold on. Virgil, I need to know this answer. Are you red or blue? I need to know this answer, Virgil, and I need you to give the right one. Are you red or blue?
The right one would be he's an Arsenal fan that happens to be in Manchester.
Nope.
But
no. I need to know, Virgil.
I think we just lost 40 people by talking about soccer for a second.
Yeah.
So, Maryland pipeline, keep that going. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
too bad Biff's not there. That would have been awesome if Biff was still on the staff.
Yeah, but you
Biff
know what?
Probably would have went to LA with him if that.
Oh my God. Can you imagine Biff Poggi rolling NFL sidelines in LA with his cut off shirt that looks like people mow their yard in?
Yeah.
What do we got?
The Crystal Palace, right?
He didn't answer the question. You just get Geek Squad over there. That's funny.
Yeah.
I worked at, I mean, I've never hidden my age before, but I worked at Circuit City in college. So that's what the hell? Do you remember Circuit City?
Yes, I remember.
Oh, okay. What the hell was our tech?
Pulling a Brock.
What?
I was just pulling a Brock. I don't know what Circuit City is.
Oh, yeah.
Probably doesn't know what Circuit City. We have to ask him. Do you know what Circuit City is?
What was the other one? Service merchandise or something like that. But that might have been, maybe that was a down south thing. I don't know if that was anywhere.
Full season. Yes, we discussed that at the top of the show. Well, not top of the show, probably like middle of the show. That was gone through top to bottom.
Let's see.
Trevor looks like he worked at Circuit City. I don't know what that means.
I do, and he's right. That's funny as hell.
Look like you work in Circuit
Oh
City.
my God.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I get it. He's right. That's a good burn. That's a great burn. I used to have, there was something going around about like, what's the deal with dudes named Trevor? And it said something about, I don't remember the full description, but it talked about them like driving a Honda Civic and blah, blah, blah. And it was pretty freaking spot on. Like, this was like when I'm in high school, Fast and Furious is the absolute thing. And I'm driving my Civic, and it was like this little meme going around like, shit, I hate how accurate that is.
He worked in the car stereo department.
Kind of.
Oh, that's funny.
I was in charge of the technology department, which was like laptops, video games, and all that. And I oversaw car stereo as well. But is our home schedule next year the most exciting? And I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's.
I mean, I know
it's really good.
I know people. Oh, we're definitely talking about QB. I know people. You're going to have to change your perception with the expanded playoff. Because for the longest time, it's like, I got to go undefeated. I think, oh my God. I did not go Radio Shack to Circuit City. I went Office Max to Circuit City. So anyway, I think the way this is going to work.
Dave, I can't confirm he has a child.
He's over. Do I got a picture of him? Yeah, here you go.
He has a kid. The natural way.
We believe he's mine. We'll see. What was I talking about?
The schedule. They're the expanded playoff.
I think there's a scenario, and we've kind of already seen it last year with Alabama, frankly, where losing a close game to Texas will be better than any blowout over a no-name team, period.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's a good test for your program as well. And I'm hoping that maintains, because with the conferences expanding and hopefully the SEC gets on board, they're still only doing 8 games and playing FCS schools. I think it's good for college football. There's weeks where there's no good games to watch. There's 130 something teams, and there's a week where there's not a good game to watch. That's insane. Right. So Texas being in the big house, that's cool. That should excite you as a college football fan. Michigan going to play at the Coliseum, I mean, we've played at Oregon before, but like the one thing I like about these additions to the Big Ten and then playing a school like Texas and Oklahoma, hopefully that one sticks. Texas, we know, is going to stick because of the Fox contract. We'll see if the Oklahoma deal sticks. But seeing legendary programs play against each other, it's cool. It's more enjoyable, right? So it's brutal. I mean, the over-under for next year might be 7.5, 8.5. Like, that's how it might get set. Could be higher, too. I think there's a lot of questions with the roster, and I think people are sleeping on how good that defense is still going to be. Big question. Somebody asked, where did it go? QB. God, I got to filter through my Office Max. Office Max to Circuit City. Now you're just bragging. Jesus. Steve is destroying me. I love it. Orgy, Denegal, Davis. We've talked about quarterback quite a bit. Doesn't feel like they're going to address it in the portal right now. Maybe in the spring they'll look at it when some grad transfers and other folks are able to jump in, and then that second window comes up. They like Alex Orgy a lot. You know that because he's still at quarterback and they put him on the field in the national championship game and in the Rose Bowl, right? They trust Alex Orgy. We haven't seen him really take any passes, so we'll have to see. Jaden Denegal is a big prototypical quarterback with a really good arm. Another guy they really like. A lot of folks have said he took a huge leap this year. Davis Warren's coming back healthy now, won't have his shoulder injury anymore. So we just asked, still waiting on Tuttles. And then, Jaden Davis, I think, is going to be included. But I don't know what he'd have to do as a freshman to earn that job. But I think the coaches are more confident in the room than fans are, is what I would say.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it they'll probably reassess after spring ball. I mean, I can't sit here and say, they're definitely going to add a quarterback right now. I don't know. I mean, maybe they do if Tuttle doesn't get his waiver, but I think
there's not an
you have
obvious starter in the portal is the point.
right. And who knows? There might be come April, but we don't really know what that, what it looks like. And yeah, I think Jaden Davis would have to have a hell of a spring and summer camp to take over the job. I mean, maybe it happens. You never know. I mean, Harbaugh's was really hesitant to start freshman quarterbacks, but I mean, it's kind of the way it is now. If you're a good freshman, most coaches won't be afraid to play you. So, does Kirk Campbell and Sherrone kind of, do they think differently? If he's good, do they play him? We'll kind of see. I mean, Harbaugh has that kind of unique look at quarterbacks that kind of differentiates from a lot of people because obviously he was a quarterback. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, who knows?
Or even if he's just getting on the field similar to what JJ was.
Yeah, true.
So that he's more in line to start as a sophomore. Who knows? Yeah. I guess my point is, I don't know. I'm naturally an optimist, so maybe this isn't fair. I feel more positive about the QB room than others do. But truthfully, very similar to what we said with Moore, you do have to speculate quite a bit because, I mean, well, Moore's coach games, blah, blah. But anyway,
right.
We haven't seen a lot. We know Orgy's a tank running the ball. When I was writing up the potential offensive coordinator candidates, the young name on there that drew my attention that we heard is Brennan Marion from UNLV. Michigan got front row seats for his go-go offense, they call it, which I think is misunderstood when they talk about the triple option. It's basically a power scheme that uses two running backs. And I immediately was like, Alex Orgy, Kalel Mullings, Donovan Edwards.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, please. Right. So I think that's going to be it too, is this staff, not Jim Harbaugh, this staff under Jim Harbaugh has done a very good job of knowing what they want to do schematically, but not forcing it on their players and adapting to what their team is. Right. Mike McDonald, Jesse Minter in year 1 and year 2, as much as those defenses were the same, they were also really different too, right? Because they had strengths in different areas of the team, and the offense is no different. So they might go through spring and say, hey, like, let this works, Orgy works because we're doing this, or Donegal works because, we're going to do the short passes almost like West Coast, but test the, they're going to play around and they're going to find what fits best. Coming into this year, Chiron Moore talked about being explosive. I think that's, you talked about this on the last pod too, I believe.
About Taco Bell?
Oh, yeah, that too. No, just God, out of context. People are like, what?
Yeah.
No, about this offense maybe getting closer to like a 60-40 pass run ratio instead of 50-50. Moore made it clear he wanted to be explosive. To their credit, he said they're going to do that by players proving they can be explosive, and those are the players that are going to get the most playing time. And other than some stuff with Roman Wilson early, there wasn't a ton of big explosive plays. They had a lot of the 20 and 30 yarders, but the big game breakers, they weren't there. So they adapted and they changed a little bit. They still ran 50-50. It wasn't a failure. It was them winning games the way they could win games. So if they see something, that Colston Loveland, oh my God, I think he's going to be a monster next year. Sorry. So somebody just dropped that in there. I'm not as worried about the quarterbacks and the running backs or even the receivers. I mean, I think you do want a big body, maybe. I think starting 5 new offensive linemen is my biggest question mark, even over quarterback, honestly, which sounds weird.
Yeah.
But we saw Michigan beat Penn State without them throwing they threw one pass as a pass interference, but they beat Penn State without JJ throwing a pass in the second half. They beat Maryland with a very injured JJ McCarthy, right? So as good as JJ, I am not trying to cut down the value of JJ McCarthy. That absolutely sounds like where I'm going. I don't mean to do that. You're getting a downgrade at quarterback next year, right? I don't know if he has to be. What?
You're just getting catching strays tonight. You're a Jim Harbaugh hater. Well, yeah, no, duh. It was a shitstorm before Harbaugh showed up.
What did I say?
I don't think anyone's denying that. Anyway, we don't need to talk about Jim Harbaugh anymore. He's gone. So
let's talk
about Chiron Moore.
I spent 5 minutes talking about what a mistake Rich Rod was, but whatever. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Moore's fingerprints look like when it comes to offensive scheme. Obviously, it'll depend on the coaches he hires. It'll depend on the recruits he brings in. We'll call this. Oh, I'm not even gonna bring that up, John. That dude is a clown. But I will, in the general topic, this is pure speculation, right? People are concerned about players leaving, right? Obviously, Chiron Moore felt like the best chance to not see a transfer portal exodus. We've seen, from what I can tell, nothing but praise and excitement from current players about the addition or the promotion of Chiron Moore. But we know tampering's happening.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. So Michigan's not stupid. Chiron Moore's not stupid. These conversations have already been ongoing. I think it's good to get it out there publicly. Again, I'm glad Michigan got the waiver. And instead of thinking, oh, we'll do it Saturday, maybe it sounds dumb to do it 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, but I think it was smart to get it out there and make it official. Yeah. But hey, Michigan's having these conversations, these rumors about Will Johnson and Donovan Edwards and Colston Loveland, who were at the Red Wings game last night as part of a Michigan NIL event. But anyway, do you have any sense? I mean, I know you meant there's one player name I know has been. I don't want to get into semantics on that, or not semantics, but details on that. But like, obviously, schools are trying to get in people's ear about, hey, Jim's gone.
Yeah. There has been teams trying to reach out and stuff like that, trying to poach. But as far as immediate, a mass exodus immediately during this 30-day window, I don't get that sense. I mean, maybe it happens in April or whenever spring ball is. I'm not sure if it's even in April. I don't know if that can continue on bumping it back a month or do it again. But yeah, I think the another purpose of hiring Sherrone was to obviously keep the team intact. So right. I think initially, yes, but if people were to leave in the spring, I think they were going to go into the spring and see where they're at anyway.
For
and
sure.
If they don't, you don't. Oh my God, this guy can't even speak type proper English. I'm getting rid of him. God, I have a low tolerance for stupidity these days.
We have very loyal people on this podcast and at michigan.rivals.com, and you don't go after our people.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is that if there were going to be transfers right now, it was just guys looking for excuses to leave. If we're talking about more in April, closer to April, during that April window, it was probably guys who were on the fence anyway, and right. Then kind of got the nudge in spring, depending on where they were on the depth chart and whether they could get playing time or not. So initially, no, I don't think this is going to be some sort of, mass exodus or anything like that. I think the team is going to be intact.
This is such a good point.
What happens in spring, that's going to influence some decisions, and it was going to influence decisions no matter who was head coach, whether it was Jim Harbaugh or Sherrone Moore. So
I think it's a great point by Steve. Sherrone's ability to keep the O-line together all these years without attrition shows he was able to keep the roster together.
Yeah.
When you've got Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter returning kind of unexpected last year, and you add 3 transfers and then nobody leaves.
Yep.
That's pretty significant, right? And then you have this crowded offensive line room where 5, 6, 7 dudes are going to the NFL, ended up being 6. And then you go get a recruiting class of 5 offensive linemen to come in still to that crowded room. That's a really good point. Yeah. I see you guys are talking about the yes or was the name we mentioned earlier. I think at this point, rather than spinning in circles, I think it's probably a good point. We'll stop here. But yes, for those of you either just joining us or coming in late, feel free to go back. We talked about more in general in the promotion coming in. We definitely got in to the coaching staff and some things we're hearing about comings and goings. Talked about the roster a little bit, why we think this will work, et cetera, et cetera. So circle back if you have any questions on that. And then, of course, a lot of the things we talked about on this podcast, we've already been talking about over at Maize and Blue Review, michigan.rivals.com. We cover Michigan for the Rivals Network. If you don't know that, head over there, michiganrivals.com. We are running a promo right now, free until spring, which, gosh, Josh, what was that? A date, end of March, right?
Yeah, end of March.
So end of March, free until spring, Nat Champs 24, scrolling on the bottom if you use that promo. That gets you access to the premium content we post, the intel Josh shares. And then honestly, oh, Derek, you're so good. I'm going to hire you to be my marketing guy. The thing we are most proud of and what you're really doing is joining our community. We have worked very hard from the start here to create a message board. The Den is what we call it. Just a spot for Michigan fans to go and talk and have reasonable conversations and just talk. And I know I've seen a lot of comments out there. I know it's been difficult with Harbaugh leaving and there's been some tension and stuff. And we try to think of it like a local Michigan bar and the hangout in the Den. So we'd love you to come in. This is a chance to try us for free. Come in, see what you think. We are very fortunate to have subscribers and people in here that not only are in our community and not only make our community great, but they consistently come in here like Steve and say nice things about us. And they go on Twitter and they tell people about our community. So I know it sounds cheesy, but we always say, don't listen to me. Ask our subscribers about our community. We're really proud of it. We love bringing people in. At this point, I feel like we've built something now where new people will jump in and they kind of already pick up the vibe and they roll with it. So we're just really excited about what we have going on over there. And look, man, this is gonna be an exciting time. I'm excited to get into depth chart, position battles, and obviously these coaching hires. Man, there's gonna be a lot going on. So good time to get on the board and talk Michigan football, and at times Michigan basketball, which will be a topic of conversation on our regular show, Hail to the Podcast. We do that Sunday and Monday. It kind of depends on how the week goes. Obviously, with the Lions playing on Sunday, we'll push that to Monday. But if you're watching right now, you want to make sure you're subscribing and doing the notification bell so you know when we go live. I always try to post it in advance so you have an idea and you can hang out till we jump on. Other than that, I think that's my usual shameless plugs, Josh.
Yeah.
Are you getting a video game going, or you're checking the site?
No, I'm trying to check something's working and it's not working. So
all right.
I think first of all, go Lions. They're gonna beat the 49ers tomorrow. That's my
you believe that?
I believe it with all of my being. I believe it. I mean, I'll probably end up being disappointed, but hey, you got to believe in something, right? Well, Lions give me finally something to believe in. And secondly, I couldn't second what Trevor said more. I almost called you Travis for some reason. I don't know why. I've
got an uncle that calls me Travis.
I've never called you that in my life.
It's usually much worse.
Yeah. It starts with an A and ends with an E. No.
Apple?
Yeah, I call you an apple. Yeah, try holding your tongue and say that. There you go. That's what it sounds like. No, but I second what Trevor says about the community.
Is Laporta out?
What? Laporta is not out. He was off the
Sorry, you were about to say something really good about this website that you've taken over and all the hard work you've put in the community.
Adam Schefter, 4 hours ago. Lions tight end Sam Laporta is off the injury report despite his knee injury and is good to go for Sunday.
Dang you, James.
James, quit trying to troll. DJ James.
I saw Debo was going to play too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I second what Trevor says. It really feels like we've built something from the ground up here. It's taken a little while for it to take hold, but even on the podcast, it's kind of felt like we're building a sense of community here. Seeing all the familiar faces, as you mentioned. No, you're good, James.
You're good, buddy.
We're messing with you. No,
you'll know when Josh is actually mad at you. Trust me.
yeah,
I
know.
think part of the loyal viewership is people hoping Josh snaps because a feisty Josh is.
I do enjoy snapping. I do enjoy snapping. It's kind of fun. It's a good little way to blow off steam a little bit. No, it really feels like we're building something from the ground up here. With the familiar faces we see every time we go on. It doesn't matter if it's an emergency podcast like this one, or if it's our regularly scheduled one. And even as you said, new faces come in here, new names come in here, and they really just adapt quickly.
Yeah.
It's not even like falling in. I don't even want to call it falling in line. It's just like they come in and they're just part of the crowd. And I think that's really what we want to promote on the website too. And on the message boards is that, everyone's welcome. We don't talk to you like you're stupid. If you say stupid things, I'm going to talk to you like you're stupid. Naturally, we're not going to talk to you like you're stupid. We're not going to talk at you. We're going to talk with you.
Yeah.
We're not going to feed you lines of shit and for you to hold on to, and turns out being not true or anything like that. So, we welcome everyone here.
Speaking of,
see what I mean? Like, it's just like everyone comes in and they pick up on the vibe immediately. And that's really kind of like the biggest compliments that our site has gotten. Customers at Circuit City.
I shouldn't.
Well,
that was
they only provided the best customer service ever. So
you know what? I'm not going to check, but I think I have a Circuit City shirt in my closet. As I've gotten older, my closet's turned into like a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Like I think I have 20 of the shirts I'm wearing right now. Like, I found a t-shirt I like, and I bought just a giant pack of them. I've got like 9 black polos because for some reason you just keep buying. Like, why do you need more than one black polo? But I think one of them is the Circuit City one. But anyway,
long story short,
if
you enjoy this podcast, why not have this every day? Because that's what we do every day inside the den. So you could be talking to us every single day, and you can see our wonderful smiling faces every week, once a week. But you could have this every day. A place of community, a place where we're going to be accessible, where you can always find us. We're not gonna, just leave you in the dark. We're not gonna feed you lines of crap. We're gonna be us, and we're gonna be genuine. And I think that's our biggest pull that we have elsewhere compared to elsewhere. So.
Dude, Steve, I think I want to start something new. Every time we do a podcast, I want to name at the end of the show the favorite. I'll come up with a name, but like the favorite watcher of the show, because you guys have been killing it today. So black polos are like mustard. You have more than you realize it by more. And then Trevor left and Circuit City folded. Worse, Derek, I was there while it folded.
Oh boy.
Well, and I'd only been a manager for like a year at that point. So like all the other managers got really good severance packages because they'd been there for a while. So within like a week, I was in charge of the entire liquidation.
And you got the shaft.
Oh yeah. I was like 21, 22 when this happened maybe. And it was like, oh yeah, you sell, because you sold everything, dude.
Yeah.
The chairs, the shelving units, literally everything. And they told
people
me
will buy it too.
Dude, every single inventory skewed item in there was gone. Like the last 4 days we were open, we literally didn't have anything to sell. All the shelves, like all the storage racks in the back that were all the everything. It was crazy. And I got to price a lot of that stuff. And the whole deal was, I had all these benchmarks and you get a percentage of it. So when I got done, I thought I made like $4,000 or something like that. Well, guess what? They're bankrupt. So you go to the creditor and you're way down on the bottom, buddy.
Yeah.
So by the time it got to me or us employees, whatever, they were already out of money. So all the stuff they'd promised me, I never got. So,
right.
But dude, I loved that job. We'd get video games like a week before they came out and you could play them without the game freaking out. So like we'd hook up our Xboxes on TVs and play Halo or Call of Duty way before it came out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That is 100% accurate, Steve. On Sundays with the movie bins, we'd all go through them before we opened the store. They're like, how are you guys out of this? The ad just came out. Yeah, they didn't give us any, man. Sorry, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about Harbaugh, if you should be mad at him taking Minter. I'm going to say no, because I think Minter was going to leave anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that's fair for him to try and succeed in the NFL. That's not one that bothers me.
No. Yeah,
if he had tried to take more, right? Like,
yeah, that would be
Herbert bugs me a little bit, but I understand.
At this point, keeping Minter on staff would be a minor miracle. I'll say that. It would be a minor miracle if he were to stay another year. It would be unbelievable.
I have to tell myself this more. Twitter is not the real world.
Oh yeah, but the amount of tweets I get every day. I mean, I shouldn't call out the trolls, but man, some of these trolls are stupid. Like I have to call out the pure stupidity of stuff.
And aggressive, man.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff that people are saying, it's crazy.
I know.
People are up in their feelings and saying crazy things, dude.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You make a fake name and get behind a keyboard, dude. It's wild. But that's why, like, to your point, Josh, like we talked about, like with the intel we share on the site, man, like I'm not promised. I think I've hedged more in this episode than normal because it's like, I'm telling people, like, I don't know. I'm telling you what we're hearing. Like, what are you getting mad at me for? Like, right. It's just wild. But anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's you get the positives and negatives with fan bases. That's a good thing about having a passionate fan base is that, it's good that you're actually talking to people and not talking at the void. You have.
Sorry, I can't help myself. Damn it, Bobby. Don't say damn. There we go. All right. I'm sure that's happened to you most of your life. I hope you're not offended, Bobby. I love your name. Please know that comes from a place of love.
Yes.
If you don't want me to do it ever again, please tell me.
So, yes. So, yeah, I mean, that's the positives and negatives about having a passionate and massive fan base like Michigan is that, you're going to have, I mean, every fan base does, but, when you actually have a following of, that follows a football team and is good like Michigan, you're going to have crazies and you're going to have to deal with them. And sometimes they get overwhelming and they get on your nerves, but, it's,
and look,
it is what it is.
I'm not going to start this topic because it will be a topic on Monday's Hail to the podcast, because I think it's part of the conversation with basketball and the larger thing with athletics at Michigan. I think Jim Harbaugh was going to the NFL no matter what, because the Chargers were always the job. And they did the one thing I didn't think an NFL team would do, which is offer him everything he wanted. I think winning the Rose Bowl and winning the national championship gave him that extra leverage. I don't think Michigan is clean here, though. And I do think mistakes were made. And I understand why people are frustrated when you think about Harbaugh, Beeline, Bakich, right? I get it. So, but we didn't do that. But yeah, we'll talk about that. I think there are conversations that need to be had about Michigan in general. But when it comes to football, Jim Harbaugh was in the building today, and it was the kind of goodbye you would expect from Jim Harbaugh. I think there were some happy and sad moments, but he came in and it was good. We've heard horror stories about these other goodbyes, and it wasn't, it was good. And there was a literal passing of the torch, and Michigan has Chiron Moore. And look, Jim Harbaugh didn't leave in 2021 after the Georgia defeat, and Michigan didn't think they could get any higher. He didn't leave in 2022 after TCU, where it felt like, man, even when we thought we could win, we didn't. He left after 2023 after winning a national championship and with the perfect successor ready to go. So he gets to go chase the dream that he wanted, and he's left Michigan in the best place he could. So it's just hard for me to be upset.
Yeah.
Blue just nailed it. Hard to be mad when he's been prepping us for years. That's kind of how I feel too. So I'm excited about Chiron Moore. We're going to keep talking about it. Michigan.rivals.com. Again, if you're not already a subscriber, Nat Champs 24, free until the end of March. So you've got the rest of January, February, March, getting right into spring camp. And then, hey, hopefully you like us and you stick around. And then again, like, subscribe, notification bell. We'll see you Monday with Hail to the Podcast. Otherwise, we hope we see you over at Maize and Blue Review talking more about the 21st head coach in Michigan football history, Chiron Moore, now official.
Go Lions.
Thanks, guys.
Go Lions.